Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to sCOPe Livestream Review, the Americas version. Hi, Skip. I just look over and I say, hi, Skip. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. We are waiting for two more people, and then when they come, I will enter them. We will start with Jan Walsh from AVCA. Hi, Jan.
Hi.
And we have Paul Blamier from 2501 Labs. Hi, Paul.
Good morning.
And good morning. And we have Liana Hudspeth, who is a consumer from the United States and also part of THR 101. Hi, Liana.
Hello.
Hello. And hi, Skip. It is Happy Great American Smokeout USA. Yes, this is America's. I didn't even realize when I was scheduling this that this was actually the Great American Smokeout, so it's kind of timely. Anyway, we had one of these the other day with Asia Pacific and Europe, and we decided we should probably do this for America. So here we go. What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss what went on at COP9, which really wasn't much, and what our plans are, what we can learn from our advocacy, and what we should do with our advocacy going forward. One of the things that I wanted to start with, if everybody's okay with, is a basic review of what went on at the COP9 that we know of. So I'm going to ask Paul, you're aware of a lot of this as well, yes?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Pretty much in summary is they didn't discuss safer nicotine products per se or THR, but they did allow countries to submit reports and information on what they were planning on doing for that. That was number one. Number two was the Framework Convention Alliance and their awards, which we will get to later, where they gave the Philippines a Dirty Ashtray Award. Actually, they gave any country that didn't go along with the plan the Dirty Ashtray Award because they were naughty and they figured they could bully them into compliance. And the other main thing was the decision that was made or agreement that was made that they would seek more funding from private investors. So I'm going to turn this over to Paul. And Paul, give us your take on all of that.
Okay. First and foremost, there wasn't very much discussed at all. Second part that I've taken from COP9 is moving, moving novel and emerging products to COP10 and discussing them there. That could be very dangerous for THR across the world. The third and probably the biggest part that I took away from it is what the Philippines have done. They've gone against the grain completely, and it looks like they're listening. Also, while COP9 was happening, we had announcements coming out of Malaysia, which is brilliant. I wish we'd had some form of announcement come out of Australia, which that didn't happen. Our illustrious health minister put together a nice little video and posted that, which was quite silly. And then the Dirty Ashtray Awards. Philippines, from memory, they got, I don't think it was just one. I think they actually got a couple of awards.
Two, I think.
But I'm so glad that they stood up to what's going on. Private funding, because now their shorts are down somewhat regarding Bloomberg and his funding and his interference. So now they're looking to open the coffers to just about anyone that doesn't have any ties to the industry, but to now open up funding or donations so they can keep going. I don't agree with that at all, because we don't know where the money will come from. We don't know what form of corruption could end up entailing as part of that. But all in all, there wasn't a whole lot discussed. There was a few different meetings of what we saw, but THR was completely off the table.
Yeah. Jan, what's your take on all of this?
Well, can I talk about groupthink for a bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so just in case people aren't kind of aware of this phenomenon, It can actually kill people. It has killed people in the past. Contributed to the space shuttle exploding. Clive wrote a quite interesting blog recently, and he looked at the statements out of the COP over years. And what I sort of saw from that was it's called group polarization. So what happens is people kind of like start off and they all kind of like basically think the same way. They get together in an echo chamber, and more and more extreme views start to be expressed, and then that's accepted by the group, and the group moves in a way that it becomes kind of like more extreme, more polarized. And those statements from the COP just demonstrate that completely. Um, they talk about governments may wish to, and then that kind of like turns into regulate, ban, restrict, and so that is actually a phenomenon that directly leads to groupthink. So then when you kind of like put that along with, you know, there's obviously people that sit in there who don't speak up. They just let it ride. The punishment of the Philippines delegate and the Philippines, dirty ashtray awards and stuff. I mean, it's just a case study. Nancy, you're on mute.
Yeah, now I did it. Great. I listened to my own rule and then unmute myself. It's frightening to think that people who are tasked to give guidance are giving guidance in a very bullying and subversive kind of way. It reminds me of junior high school. Remember the cool kids? Or intermediate. You got the cool kids and then you got the non-cool kids. And if you don't do what we want you to do, well, you're a non-cool kid and we're going to just terrorize you. Liana.
Yeah, it's even worse though, I think. It's like because these people are actually, taking back policies into countries, and saying, well,
Mhm.
we must do this and we must do that, and it just all comes from a flawed decision-making process, which is quite honestly pathological.
It is. And now, Liana, I want to ask her something really quick. You're in the United States. Now, the United States has not ratified the FCTC.
Thank God.
Well, there's an American billionaire telling them what to do and how to do it, right? What's your take on all of this?
When I heard what was going on with COP9, I noticed that their main focuses were their own private agenda, and that they completely took the focus off of any kind of THR. And they were really excited to talk about money and how to get more money, which all leads down to, just the whole greed principle. And I just want to know how we're going to get out this information to the general population in an informative way to let them know what's going on. Because even though we're not ratified in the United States, what happens in other countries influences decisions of other countries. I could not be more proud of the Philippines. Their stance and their, as Paul put it, going against the grain is amazing. And I would have been proud of that award. I really would have. But, how can we get this information out to the general population and let them know what's going on? Let them know what's happening in more than just let's not be a closed group. How can we get the information out there? That is where I'm at. I know what the problem is, and I want to get into the solution.
Yeah, it was like Jen and we were talking about before we went live, guys. We had a conversation. We don't want to wind up just like they are, with these private meetings and closed door meetings, and people don't know what's going on. It has to be transparent and it has to be relatable. I mean, and that's why we're doing this, because We need Liana is good because Liana, as a consumer and who hasn't really been advocating for that long, although she's freaking amazing, to give us that insight, because sometimes I think we forget that the people we're dealing with aren't as passionate or aren't as knowledgeable as we are. So we have to serve them the information that they need and make it relatable so that they do get engaged and they do care. Let's talk about the money situation, because that's a big one. And, we were talking again previously, and, the WHO and the COP9, FCTC has been getting a lot of backlash because of the influence of one American billionaire. And now that they have opened this whole funding thing up, and they've gotten pretty much bullied everybody into agreeing about the money and getting money from private investors. Okay. When we were talking about this the other night, half the people were like, oh, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, because it's just going to be the top 1% controlling everything. And then a couple of people came in and said, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it gives us a little bit of transparency to know a little more about what we're up against. Jan, what's your thought on that?
Well, it's kind of 50-50 really, isn't it? It's sort of like, on one hand, it seems immoral basically to say, give us money. We, as long as you're not the tobacco industry, we don't care who you are, just give us the money. We're not going to give you a seat at the table. We're not going to tell you what we do. We're going to sit behind closed doors and do our own thing, but you should give us money anyway. And but on the other hand, actually knowing transparently who is giving the money might be quite useful.
Yeah. We've got Dick Puddlecoat in here. Oh, hi, Roberto. I'll let you in a second. Let me let Roberto in. Hello, everyone. Roberto Sussman is here. Welcome. Bienvenido.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Buenos días a todos.
Sorry, let me finish this one thought, Roberto. Dick Puddlecoat, who's been an advocate in the UK forever. Sorry, I mean, he started as an infant. Okay, Dick. He wrote something here, and I want to read this. Good point from Jan. Perfect example of groupthink was the the WCTOH conference. I can't remember what that means. World Conference, Tobacco and Health in 2018 in Cape Town, where the WHO declared war on the tobacco industry. And at the same meeting, press conferences were held to state that all THR products were made by Big Tobacco. The war against industry was held up as synonymous with the war on THR. And this is the interesting part, and this is kind of where I'm going to go with this. They have labeled all of us as tobacco industry shills or mouthpieces for the tobacco industry. And that is, Jan and I have experienced it in New Zealand. They throw Article 5.3 at us, and we can't go to a conference, a public health conference that we went to for years, because all of a sudden somebody decided, oh, you guys are a tobacco company. So I wonder if, all these philanthropists who are out there trying to help people, if we can use the fact that they're actually completely disenfranchising regular people, if we can use that as a means to get our voices heard. Now, I want to ask Roberto something. Roberto, the other day, during the sCOPe presentation, you brought up about social engineering. Mm-hmm. Okay. With regards to the WHO and the policies. Now, as we know that the WHO has agreed, and the members, the signatory countries, have agreed now to seek funding from other private investors. What is your take on that?
That they are going to seek for more.
Yeah, from other private investors.
No, I think that there's nothing wrong with having philanthropists giving money for these causes. What is absolutely wrong is the lack of scrutiny, the lack of accountancy, transparency, and also the fact that this has to be declared as a conflict of interest. Just like industry, there is no difference. Like, how many industries having less capital than Bloomberg? How many industries? You can count them with the fingers. he is an industry. Because we have this conception of industry that dates from the last century. You know, you have a factory, you have an assembly of workers, etc., etc., and that's an industry. But that's outdated. You know, Amazon doesn't work like that, or Google doesn't work like that, and Bloomberg doesn't work like that. They are industries. Bloomberg is an industry. It's a corporation. So, and all these philanthropists, if they give money, well, thank you very much. But you have to, people receiving your money have to declare it as a conflict of interest. And you are not, and you have to be transparent. You have to be submitted to accountancy. You have to state clearly what are your goals. It would be very different if the Bloomberg groups publicly would say, we are for prohibition, or we're for abstinence only approach, and we're financing people to promote this approach. So, and these people are accountable to us. Therefore, they have a conflict of interest. This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Force them. Because, you know, if we go into conspiracy theories like Bill Gates is trying to take over the world, putting chips in our brains and so on, we lose. We should not be aggressive to them. The opposite, welcome them. However, tell them that there are rules in the game and they have to fulfill these rules. They present themselves as a granny, an old granny that is very rich and is giving money for an orphanage. That's not like that. This is not this type of philanthropy. It is an industrial philanthropy.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Everybody, we're all sitting there going,
yeah, we have to say that.
It is what it is. Yeah.
This to the media. Say, Bloomberg, you're welcome, but there are rules. You're an industry. You're not just a little guy. You have to be very clear in what are your, what is the, where is the accountability? And all these groups that you fund, they have to declare it as conflict of interest. Otherwise, you're out.
Yeah. I don't know if that's, we'll have to do that on our end. I don't think they'll do it because I think they're just like Liana said, they're just so money hungry. They'll take money from anybody and they don't really care unless it's, as long as it's not tobacco. And what was it? The 5 degrees of sanguinity or something. As long as it's not tobacco, they'll take the money from anybody just to do whatever they need to do. Which brings me to, did you guys all see the tweet from Adriana Blanco Marquez? That tweet right there, and we, you know, it kind of shows, and for people out there that haven't seen it, let me find it here. She sent a tweet out. The head of the convention secretariat of the WHO FCTC sent out a tweet, and this is what it said. If you don't like the science that is out there, create some of your own, and then claim we need more research, and then label your opposition as a bunch of closed-minded fanatics.
Who put this tweet?
This was Dr. Adriana Blanco Marquizo, the head of the convention secretariat of the WHO FCTC. Jan?
Freud would be having a field day.
No, it's foolish. It's not that there are two sciences. You conduct an experiment, you take measures, and that's it. You cannot say, no, the measures are not like that. No, the measures were like that. It's not that there are two sciences. It's a fact that they are selective in the scientific studies they choose. They don't look at the other. They never cite, for example, British institutional sources. And it's not... Yeah, we can really answer back. Let me think of some way of answering that woman.
Yeah, she just, I mean, we gave her, we have a good cop, bad cop award. And for that tweet, she got the, you really shouldn't say that about yourself award. Because like Jan said, very Freudian. Yeah, just a bit. I mean, and which kind of ties me into the next bad award, which was our proposal won't do a thing, but the delegates loved it. The FCA was offering out that, they were using their Orchid Award and their Dirty Ashtray Award to try to coerce people into following the plan. And Iran, by the way, whose government does hold a sizable stake in the tobacco industry, made a declaration that, about tobacco and safer nicotine products. And they win that award because its meaningless declaration won't stop one person smoking, but sounded very important. Stressed the need to protect public health policy from the commercial invested interests of the tobacco industry, and that tobacco control measures, particularly increases in tobacco taxes, should be an integral part in pandemic recovery efforts. They won the Orchid Award from the Framework Convention of Alliance for that.
Well, if the Americans were not able to transform the MSA money into money for health, the Ayatollahs won't do it either.
Yeah.
Iran is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. It's they have these guards, these revolutionary guards, which themselves are like a state within the state.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no scrutiny there. There is no accountancy. And also, they have a national tobacco industry, don't they?
Yes, they do. A sizable one. And it's, the thing that amazes me here with all of this is that the countries that have sizable tobacco interests are the ones that are getting all the awards. What's that about? Yeah, so the last bad award, the Bad Cop Award, I'm going to go with it now, and then we'll do the good ones in a minute, is the Where the Hell is Wally Award. And the Where the Hell is Wally Award goes to Michael Bloomberg because he traded the COP9's low-profile, mostly closed-door online meeting for jumping on a jet and flying to Glasgow's glitzy, high-profile COP26 as the UN Special Envoy for Climate Ambition and Solutions. Again, very important.
Mm.
So it does tie into what you were saying, Roberto, throughout sCOPe about, these people that, money and power, and they're going to tell the rest of us what to do because we're too stupid to make decisions on our own. So what we're doing here, hopefully, is to come up with something on how do we proceed, knowing we got to know our enemy. Okay. Liana, I'm going to toss this one to you. I'm tossing it back to you. You were talking about, getting the message out to consumers and to regular people in language and in ways that they would be engaged and they would want to help. Correct?
Exactly.
Now, the average person, I'm guessing in America, is, in light of all the stuff that's going on, they probably have little to no tolerance for rich people telling them what to do.
I would hope so, but they need to be aware of what the rich person is doing. We're talking within our own network as well. Most of my friends vape. There are some on the outside of the circle. And yes, I do post and share things on my personal page. And there's only about, maybe 1,500 people that are on that page. And I do regurgitate worthy things on Twitter that are important and occasionally make my own tweet to share this. But most of us are already advocating in some way, in some way, about this common cause. And we have shows and we're discussing things. And there's, consumer shows that are now getting more into advocacy, like the one that Paul has joined on Wednesday is being discussed, and then there's shows that just specialize in advocating. But I feel like we're talking to our own. So my main concern is how can we address this in a way that's understandable to a person with an average education and get them to care in a short way, and let them know what's happening. And all the abbreviations, I mean, you can ask Paul, just for an example, when he was trying to explain some things to me, how many times I would stop and ask him, for instance, what does FCTC stand for? You know, what does this stand for? What does that stand for? We need to spell things out and tell them actually what these agencies do and where the money is coming from outside of our circle. And I believe that would be the most helpful thing, and it has to be short. And I admire what the Philippines did as far as using TikTok, something like that, where it's short, it's simple, and it lets them know some basic facts in easy to understand ways. And that way, more people understand what's going on, where the corruption's at, and what's being decided for them. But we're also up against the brainwashing of the media, at the dollar, the Bloomberg dollar. We're also up against that. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and we need to come up with innovative ways to cover that.
Yeah, I fully agree, because the mainstream media, for the most part, is we will never break through to that. I don't think we will, because, like you said, Bloomberg controls and his cronies control the messaging.
And pay.
Especially,
They pay.
yeah, they pay. It's pay to play, right? So one of the things that was discussed was, with the benefit of sCOPe, was that it brought all of us together from across the planet, and that we can all work together and we can all support each other in a way that we do get a little louder, well, a lot louder, hopefully, but that we need to be really prepared for COP10, because by the time we get to COP10, it's going to be 5 years since the FCTC actually discussed anything relative to tobacco harm reduction. We have the science. We know about the science. Whether they're going to choose not to acknowledge it, obviously. Some people think that the 2 years is a good thing, like I said, because it gives us time to strategize and try to engage at the ground level and with public health people. Some people are concerned because so many things are happening behind the scenes. So where do we go from there? What do we do with
Yeah,
this? I mean,
I have
go
an
ahead.
idea. KAC in the US is
UK.
offering grants. It's offering grants. We need to do all what you say. We need money because we are all part timers. See, after this meeting, I have to give a lecture, and we are all part timers, but they are giving grants. I cannot take one of these grants because immediately I will be blacklisted and so on, and I cannot be blacklisted because I'm the head of the major organization in Mexico, the vaping organization, right? But any one of you, or if you know other people, you can ask for a grant. In fact, maybe one or two grants. And the purpose of these grants would do what you are saying. Like, for example, we could do a sort of media tracing and immediate response, and Twitter wars, Twitter and TikTok wars, and be paid for that, because that will be a stimulus, and it will also force us to have commitments, to have goals, commitments, etc. And that would be paid. For example, if any one of if if any one of you uh, gets one of these grants, you can work with me. I will not appear in any of the productions, but I will supply information. For example, if there is another heart attack bullshit paper, I can get references, and I can do it. I can get you material to answer back, and then you start a Twitter war with that. The idea would be to be like mosquitoes, not to leave these people alone, to be bugging them all the time. Every piece of shit that they uncover will be met by Twitters and things like that, and so on. But we need money for that, and the mechanism would be one of the KAC grants. I can talk with Jerry and tell him that it's important to get to get a couple of grants of this type to do that. This is a proposal. I don't know if any one of you volunteers. I would help you. I would help you and would get you material. I have lots of material. I don't
Yeah,
have
I mean,
time. I don't have time to put it there.
I know, I get that. The thing is, a consumer, yeah, like Liana would be the one person that I'm thinking that would be great for that. Okay, to apply, and I could talk to Jerry and Patty and probably wing that if that's what she wanted to do, because I've helped other people get them. Yes, there definitely needs to be. We've discussed this before, the multiple channels of attack, and yes, the mosquito. I love the mosquito analogy, Roberto. It's spot on. Okay, we definitely need to be mosquitoes. When something comes up, attack it
Yeah.
and attack it hard.
Yes,
You
yes.
know?
And social networks, and suddenly we might be getting attention, people becoming trending topic,
Yeah.
and even not necessarily. Well, I think if we are doing it from a consumer point of view, we can tell them you are a liar. I can't do that. I can't do this in a paper. But and in fact, I cannot do it in Twitter, because if you see my tweets against I have sent, I don't know, hundreds of tweets towards the Mexican authorities. All of them are very polite, very centered, and so on. But consumers can say you're lying. I was saved by vaping. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
And
there was a concern in the past with the KAC because their funding does come from the Foundation for Smoke Free World. There was a major concern about getting involved with that. But at this stage of the game, I have to say, I mean, we're tarred anyway. They don't care who we are. They don't care what we are. They just automatically have this idea in their head that we're all this anyway. So why not?
yes,
It
but has to be. Not everybody can do that. Like if I do that, I'll be blocked out from many papers, and I'm preparing serious papers about that.
yeah. Yeah,
I
no, I
can't
get
do
that.
that. I can't do that. But other people like Liana or Jan or Paul, you can do that. If they tell you, you are tobacco shields, say, fuck you, whatever, because you can defend yourself. It's not going to affect careers or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's getting to the point, where, and this is going to sound really strange, but follow me. It used to be you had superpowers and countries with really strong economies, and COVID has actually kind of evened out the playing field to a certain extent and made it worse in other places. But it's not an issue now of how do I put this? Jan, maybe you can help me. I think you probably know what I'm trying to say. It's not an issue of imperialistic countries telling other countries what to do. It's individuals. It's the individuals with money. So it has to be fought, as a group. What's your take on that, Jan?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it used to be like the British would tell New Zealand, for example, what to do and how to organise our society and our laws and our country, and now suddenly it's billionaires telling us what to do. Weird.
It's like a return to feudalism. Go ahead. Roberto, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that these billionaires have a budget that is larger than the budget of many countries.
I mean, Patrick is in here and he made a really good comment. It's no longer imperialism, it's philanthrocolonialism by billionaires.
Yeah.
That's correct. I have to say something about Twitter, though. And then Patrick does make a good point. We already do that on Twitter. It still tends to be an echo chamber. Before, I got involved at all in advocating in any way. I did not engage in Twitter. We're trying to reach the general population that, like you said, they're overwhelmed with normal responsibilities and normal life with COVID on top of it, vaccine issues and their health and, family members dying and things like that. It's not just Twitter. There has to be other platforms. There has to be easy to reach bites, like commercials, it has to be, it's not just engaging in the war. Because let me tell you how I look through Twitter. I read down really, really fast and I look for things that are pertinent and truthful. I retweet it so it floods. But I'm only reaching the 350 some odd followers that I have. Okay. What I need to do is create new things because most people, unlike, Patrick, Kevin, Paul, and people that are getting engaged in the subtweets, most people are just going to still see that first tweet. That's what's going to sink into them really, really quick. So I'm just saying from my own perspective. So, but if I make a new tweet, if I engage in something new, and I put forth a new idea, not necessarily getting an argument, that's the first thing that they see. That is most important for me as far as Twitter goes from an average person's, consumption of it. There has to be other media sources. It can't just be about contradicting as a mosquito. I want to come in like a bumblebee somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I just asked Skip if she wants to come in because she's at the coalface with the vape shop. But she did say this. Take your hobbies, racing, hunting, fishing, crafts, restoring old cars. Follow people on Twitter with those interests and get out of the bubble. Fair? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Grow your network as big as you possibly can and move into the other things. I'm engaging again with the racing industry that I came from. I worked in horse racing for many years, fishing, not so much hunting here in Australia, cars, yes, music. And I'm seeing a lot of DJs from around the world now switching from smoking to vaping while they're doing their sets live. And I think that's brilliant. That's putting it out there, but it's also putting a mixed message out there to the younger people in the audiences that this is okay. But if you have a look at some of the festivals in Europe now, they're actually sponsored by ICOS because they don't want people smoking at these events. They'd rather them vaping or using like heat not burn products, which I think is great. I'm helping convert jockeys and training staff and ground staff in the racing industry across to vaping because we all know that the horse racing industry, it's born and bred on nicotine and caffeine. That's how we survive. So yeah, get out there and find the other hobbies and the other things that we have been doing over the years. None of us in this conversation, we're not kids anymore. We're older and we do have bigger networks.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for that, Skip. We owe you one for that. Let me ask Roberto something really quick. Roberto, in the scientific community, and I think you've covered this, but I'd like you to cover it again. In the scientific community, there are people that are possibly supportive of THR or maybe could be swayed towards THR, but they're afraid to because of the same issues that you deal with being ostracized and shunned. How can we as consumers reach out to them for support or maybe to educate, or should we?
It's a difficult question. It's a difficult issue because, well, you can send a personal message. First, it's not so easy to identify who they are. If you go back in time to the Soviet Union, say in 1984, 1983, and suddenly bumped with Gorbachev and had a beer with him and say, Mr. Gorbachev, what do you think about these issues of Soviet policy that are wrong? He wouldn't say, well, I'm skeptical. No, he would say the party line, because there is a time when these people jump. It's not, but nevertheless, there is no loss in sending them a personal message. For example, if one if you discover one scientific study that is particularly nasty, and you send a personal message, very polite, to the person saying, look, I'm surprised to read what you say because I've been vaping for 8 years and I feel very well. I don't see my doctors say that I'm okay, etc. So how can you explain that? Something like that, very polite, like, yeah, you are the expert and I'm a consumer. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned of what you are saying because I'm a consumer. So please, please tell me what is wrong. Where am I wrong? Something like that. That is not. It's not intrusive. It's not aggressive, and it might. If the person doesn't reply, then perhaps you know that person has no. It's one of the orthodox. But if the person takes the time to reply and so on, you have an indication that that person might have some small grain of humanity or some grain of empathy. That would be my advice, because it's very difficult to identify them. See, I've identified them because, for I'll give you an example. My oncologist, um, he agrees with everything we say.
Mhm.
The only complaints he has is that the long-term risks that we don't know. But anything else, he agrees. So I tell him, look, if you agree, why don't you get me one? Because the hospital has periodical meetings where people are told about innovations and so on. Why don't you get me one? I'm an academic. I have a I have publications. I am an established academic. So
Mhm.
why don't you get me? And I promise I will not talk about medicine. I will only talk about the physics and chemistry of all these things without medicine. Please
Yeah.
get me one. And he backed down, said, no, impossible. And from then on, he has become less receptive.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. It's difficult. It's like in the Inquisition, some inquisitors might be, some McCarthists might be saying, well, we're going too much. But there comes a time when these people jump, like it happened in the Soviet Union. But it's
Mhm.
not the time. I don't think it right now. I think we're approaching the time, but not yet. So my
Okay.
advice would be personal letter as a consumer that is surprised of what this person said. A letter, send them a letter, an email, very polite,
Mhm.
and express your concern. Say, you say that electronic cigarettes do this. I've been using them and I'm concerned. Please,
Yeah.
please
See
help
what they
me
can
out.
do.
That's a
Yeah.
great suggestion. And
Yeah.
I, on a side note, I just want to tell you, Dr. Sussman, your input during scope from a consumer perspective was informative, educational, and funny. So you were able to hold my attention, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the information that you put forth. And I just wanted to tell you personally, from a consumer's viewpoint, thank you for being so good at what you do.
Well, you're welcome. I'm also a consumer, mind you.
Yes, he is. Um, so just to kind of summarize at this stage, okay, the things that we need to do going forward in the lead up to the next COP is that we need to do more outreach with people outside of our bubble. So we need to do more outreach with scientists and public health people and question, reach out to them in a humane kind of way to see if we can engage with them and relate to them on a human level and humanize this with other people outside of our bubble. Correct? Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
Jan, what are your thoughts on this? What do you want to add to this?
Yeah, it's always a difficult thing to do, isn't it? Kind of like reaching out to people. Some people kind of like don't really want to listen. They're not interested, and I think it's probably going to take a bit of time to sort of like get us sort of like more out there. Although on saying that, there are, where I live now, there are a lot of vapors, and you don't see that many people smoking any longer. So, there's always strength in numbers.
Well, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Roberto.
Yeah, that's another important thing that it depends where you move. Like in the academic world where I move, I'm in an institute with 100 researchers, and I'm the only vapor. And there is one smoker. 98 people don't consume nicotine. And well, it's Mexico, it's not California. So smoking is not seen as something so disgusting. But people are simply not interested. They think the problem has been solved, that there is a bureaucracy taking care of it, and it's a non-issue. And that's we have to now. If you go to lower levels of society, you see more smokers, but then they are more isolated. They are less educated. They are less willing to engage in something. So it's a demographic problem that is much worse in your countries than in Mexico. It's much worse because a friend of mine who's a smoker went to see her daughter who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then she said, well, I want to have a cigarette. And her daughter set up a table with coffee in the yard, outside, completely outside. And the woman was smoking. And suddenly the neighbors knock down and say, somebody is smoking and the smoke comes into our yard. Please stop that. That was not true because the smoke did not go so far. But they say that they were smoking and they have children and so on. They make a big fuss. So my friend had to smoke indoors because otherwise that would never happen in Mexico. Never. The person would be smoking in the yard. Nobody would care. If I go outside of my institute, the moment I cross the door outside and I throw a big cloud, nobody cares. Nobody will say anything. Nothing. If I do it inside, then people complain. If I do it outside, but in your countries, it's a difficult issue because nobody smokes and people think that the problem has been solved.
Jan?
Well, I don't think that would happen in New Zealand either. I live in New Zealand, and what I kind of notice, although it's less, it's becoming less now, but especially when I first started vaping, is that people weren't worried about cigarette smoke so much, but they would cross the road to get away from me.
Yeah, and that's true because I experienced it as well. Very true.
Now,
I don't know what's in that,
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and it might be dangerous or something. So
no. But look, we can something positive we can advise to consumers is that we live in a bad time. We are passing bad times. Okay, we can't control many things and so on. But what we can control is our vaping. See, I have disciplined myself that when I go outside, when I'm outside of my house, this is the only things that I vape. And I vape very discreetly. I never throw a big cloud when I'm outside. When I'm at home, then I throw clouds and I use this monster. I use this monster and I generate a meteorological thing. But no, I think we should advise vapors to do this, to be discreet whenever
Consideration.
they're outside, and to do this, yeah, to do this and to do it very discreetly.
Yeah.
Every time they're outside, because we have to remove from the consciousness of the people the cloud chasers. We have
Yeah.
to remove that image. The tattoo guy with the cloud chaser. No, has to be a person, a mature person, just throwing a very small cloud. That's it. And that's
And I
what we
think
should see.
And I think that's a lot of the reason behind the WHO pushing to ban open tank systems is because of the visual of it
Yes.
and the perception of it. Liana, you were going to say something.
I was gonna say, at my salon, it's in a shopping center complex, and only one time, because I usually don't bring that big of a device. Probably my favorite all day vape is just something that fits in my hand like that. And I go outside. We have a separate smoking area and a bench. And sometimes I'm with a client. Maybe they're processing their color. They want a breath of fresh air. They may or may not smoke. And they sit down beside me and I said, "I'm going to vape. Is that okay with you?" And they're like, "Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all." Or if they have questions about it, it opens up a topic of conversation, but I blow my clouds down. Um, and there are times for discretionary vaping and, stealth vaping and things like that. I would completely agree. But there's one other vapor, he goes off to a separate area and sometimes we talk. But when people are walking by, no, I don't blow a cloud for them to be, inhaling or something like that. But most of the time when I'm sitting down talking to a non-vapor, non-smoker, they're like, "Oh, that smells really good. What is that?" And like, I made it myself. I know what's in there. And we start a conversation. That is very valuable to me. And I think it's important because, anytime you have an opportunity for conversation, take that opportunity.
I mean, that
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, that's how Jen and I managed to. Remember in Wellington, we used to have the vape days and things like that. And but it's hard now because in the time of COVID, we're all not out anymore. So that kind of restricts it. Lindsay has shown up, so I'm going to add her. Welcome, young lady.
I'm so sorry.
It's perfectly okay. We've got Roberto, Paul, Liana, Jen, and myself.
Roberto with the awesome
Um,
beard.
I
Roberto's just awesome, full stop. We've been discussing, well, everything and what happened at COP, and we've been discussing perception. We've been discussing humanizing the issue with other people outside of our bubble, how to get outside of the bubble. Now that you're here, quickly, just give us your take on what you feel we need to do going forward in the lead up now to the COP10 when we finally get some decisions made.
Embracing harm reduction.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the narrative that I'm seeing now, is that we're kind of getting attacked for our embrace of that, while the whole harm reduction is being pushed for other options. Yeah, in states is the opioids, but you're starting to see a lot of disdain towards us using the harm reduction, even though e-cigarettes are harm reduction products just by the definition of them. So I think that we really need to hone in on that and hone into what makes them harm reduction. Why does this apply to them?
Yeah. No. Agreed. You've arrived at the perfect time. I'm going to do the last three
So
COP
sorry.
awards. We did the bad COP awards. You missed those. But we're going to do the good COP awards, and I'm glad you're here for them. Okay. The first good COP award that I'm going to give is the Give a Man a Cigar Award, which goes to Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. for standing up to the COP9 delegates and telling them to follow the science on far less harmful novel tobacco products if they want to solve the world smoking problem. We all agree to this?
Yes.
And then the next one is the wow, someone's actually telling us what's going on award, which goes to COPWatch for getting inside this very secretive COP9 and giving us all real world insights. So full credit to them as well. And our last but not least award goes to the I Am the Evidence Award. And this goes to our very passionate consumer advocate and scope panelist, Liana Hudspeth, for keeping it real and reminding us safer nicotine products are lifesavers. Going forward, the discussion going forward, hold on. This discussion that's going forward, wash hands, whatever, Tom. Tom from New Zealand's here. The discussion going forward, one of the things that we talked about in the previous review that we did for Europe and Asia Pacific was how do we all work together going forward in the lead up? And one of the things that was brought up, and Martin Cullip brought it up, I believe it was Martin, is that we all do need to work together and we need to have these, especially now in the time of COVID, and who knows when we're all going to see each other in person again, if ever, how we're going to all work together going forward and engaging. Because one of the things that we heard about sCOPe that people liked was the ability to talk to people from different parts of the world and to find out that we're all fighting the same battle on different fronts. So one of the things that was suggested was that we have like maybe a monthly catch up where, we do it somehow. I figure out the time zones and we can all get together and do like a mini version of the sCOPe. What are your thoughts on that? You can, whoever wants to take it first can. Anybody?
Yes.
Anyone?
Yes, I say yes. Maybe I'll actually join up on time for the one. Sorry.
Dreams are
But
free.
I think that honestly, and I really like that is what a lot of people noticed, is the global interaction with people. I think that's the beauty of what sCOPe was, seeing how everybody's being impacted by these one little things around the globe. So I like the idea of doing it, and maybe even doing like a regional one. Here's the Americas, do it with the WHO regions.
Yeah, continue the background conversation and when possible, amplify everyone's efforts. Yes, Patrick. Jan?
Yep, I think it's kind of what I've noticed is that a lot of people walked out of it and they were really energized, and it was like, oh, are we going to stop? We can't stop. We've got to keep going. And there were suggestions that these sessions could be several hours long, like the one that we're sitting in right now is what I'm talking about. Everybody got really powered up, really energized, and I think it was actually really quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul?
Definitely, because we've all got different problems from around the world. Different things are happening. Australia's the petri dish for very, very silly THR type for the situation that we have here, but we all have different issues that need to be covered on a global level. Simple as that. If we can shine a light on the different countries and what's happening or what might be happening in the future, it's great.
Okay,
not a problem at all.
Liana?
Apologize, I was unprepared. I agree with what everyone's saying. I'm a simple consumer. I want to reach more people. Somehow, I'm going to do my best to do that on my own level and anywhere I can possibly help. You guys put it together, and I will do it. That's all I can contribute at this point, and keep on discussing this.
Roberto, last but not least.
Yes, we have to follow up. It was a great effort invested, so it needs to be followed up. Now, in my region, which is Spain, Portugal, and Latin America, we already have a network, RELDAT, which includes like 25 scientists, myself, and I think there is a genetist, and the rest are medics. And they are all openly supportive of tobacco harm reduction. Some of them it's not so easy to mobilize them. Some of them jump to the first opportunity, and so we already have something organized, but it can be somehow combined. We can say the RELDAT meeting and put the scope and say this is also part of the scope continuation. We do all this, of course, in Spanish
Mm.
because we discriminate the Portuguese speakers
Guys are
because
evil.
no, but it's not symmetric. Portuguese speaking people understand Spanish
Yes,
perfectly,
I
but
know.
we don't understand Portuguese because it's the phonetics and so on. But nevertheless, I agree. It's true. We have to continue doing that. And I would have a further suggestion.
Mm,
Would it be possible? I'm I'm sort of daydreaming.
that's
Would it
okay.
be
Go ahead.
possible to, from all the presentations in the scope, which were a lot of them, to do a sort of an hour and a half film of that with the what's this the prime things to
Yeah,
select.
we're going to do that. We're planning on that. We're planning on doing that. I've got everything, and we're going to edit it all up and make like a little scope, like science.
Okay,
Yeah, we're going to do that. Probably start that in January though, and it'll be out in January if that's okay.
yeah, because
Um,
we can promote. In
yeah,
fact, it might be even possible to commercialize it.
depending. Yes, yes. But that all the editing right now, we're just getting everything collated and put together and indexed, and then once that's done, in 2 weeks starts editing, and then there's a lot to edit. So we're hoping to have some of it ready by January, and then we'll obviously share it with everybody. My last question for this is to Liana. As a consumer, what was the best part of Scope, and what would you like to see in the next one? We're going to probably do it again, not 5 days, maybe like, a scope like science and people and panels and all that. What was the best part, and what would you like to see more of?
Oh my gosh, how can you put me on a spot like that? Because there was so much of it that was good. Um, I I don't know that I can have a favorite. What I was most personally involved in was Son of Liberty's radio's neurodiversity as far as my interaction with the chat and what went on. I am now engaged as a pilot with Dr. Marwer's um, tobacco,
Squirrel.
the squirrel program, on helping becoming better at helping people quit smoking. Um, I just ate up Roberto's science and facts. Um, I loved the bravery and the courage and the knowledge of Dr. Shree. I enjoyed ASA. I love listening to the Philippines, all the different countries. I really enjoyed, and I can't remember exactly right now because you put me on the spot. And it's
Sorry.
too early. It's okay. The
It's
the
too early.
gentleman, it is still for me. Okay, I stay up
Okay.
late with Paul. It's Paul's fault. Um, the 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 older gentleman and the young lady that both had a team. She represented the millennials, as far as like advocacy. They were a team. I can't remember
You're talking about
exactly what.
Casal. You're talking about Alex and Danielle?
Alex and Danielle. Okay, all of it, everything was good. Everybody's input was absolutely awesome. I mean, I learned so much. So I can't really say I have a favorite because I ate it all up. But
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah, no. I mean, this I had to share this. Sorry, Skip, I put you on camera here. Yes. This is the whole point of everything. We're not alone. None of it nobody is alone. And I think we've all learned that. Um, Lindsay, what was your favorite part, and what would you like to see more of?
You and you. I I really
No.
I mean, I really just thought it was really awesome the whole 24/7 live stream to kind of counteract the whole lack of transparency going on with COP. What I'd like to see more of, more countries involved, more people involved, more, people talking and, getting the excitement going. That would be, it would be nice, on the next one if we could get like a representative from every single country on there, okay, or at least get, how many did they have? 161 delegates, the best
Yeah.
ever for COP9. If we can get something similar to that, would be great.
I've got a meeting with Jess Harding next week to talk about regional cooperation and see if we can bring we've got Latin America, we've got Asia, we've got Europe, we've got to bring Africa in. I think we
Okay.
need to hear from Africa.
Their
So we're
THR
working on that.
pages, they're pretty active too.
Yeah.
I know a few of the people on Twitter.
Yeah. So, I think that will help. Jan?
Well, I'm not quite sure what my favourite part was, because quite honestly, I haven't managed to watch it all yet. So
It's okay. It's okay. I'm watching it again as we do editing. So
yeah. So, but I mean, there were some fascinating panels. I love Shri. She's just a wonderful person, and you just get such an insight. When she's talking about the culture in India and stuff, and it's fascinating. So
yeah.
if I had to pull one person out, that would be it. So,
Yeah,
and
Shri's
sorry,
pretty epic.
Roberto, I haven't watched yours yet, but I'm really, really, really looking forward to it because, physics is not my strong point, but I'm sure you'll kind of like just make it understandable for everybody.
He does. He's awesome. Look at Roberto. He's just like blowing clouds. He's just happy as hell.
I'm at home.
This kind of he locked up. Paul.
Way too many presentations were good for me.
Okay.
I liked. Look, honestly, I'm a geek. Roberto, yes, thank you very much. I do enjoy physics and I love my chemistry.
Thanks.
They're two things that really get me. Patrick's panel, neurodiversity, blew the doors off a lot of things
Yes.
and how it went into it and breaking it down very, very simply and real people talking about their situations. That was completely different and that blew me away. Learning about the people, my peers and people that I look up to and what they're going through, that was another thing. With Lindsay and what she was doing with Scope Watch and then the different reports that were coming out as well, things that were happening there. The international discussions between the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, they were great as well. Australia, sure, I'm the only one representative of here, but I think now it's time that we engage a few more here in Australia and across the pond with you, Nancy, in New Zealand, and we do a proper discussion or a proper panel of what you're going through there and our disgusting prescription model that seems to be almost thrown under the bus already, and it's only been going for a few weeks.
Yeah, no, for sure. I want to answer a comment here. Kira, Liana, we need to reach the non-vapors, and I don't see them looking up vape stuff on the internet. Kira, we had a discussion about this, about how we have to engage with the people in our other interests and maybe bring them in that way through the other interests. I'm sure you can talk to Liana about that afterwards. Yeah, and Liana just answered it. So I just answered it twice. Sorry. The plan is going forward, like I said, we'll do a scope thing like we did. And Patrick said we can even get people to pre-record stuff, which would be pretty awesome, actually, Patrick. Thank you for thinking of that. And do them in shorter bursts, so we're not doing, 24-hour live streams because that's just nuts. But I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad it makes the work worthwhile because, there was a lot of work involved, but it was worthwhile. So thank you for that. So to you guys. That kind of concludes this part. If the girls want to stick around and we can have a girl chat, and the boys, you can stick around if you want to, but I'm presuming, Roberto, you've got classes to teach.
Yeah, I have to teach in 50 minutes. I just wanted to say something. It's an anecdote.
Mm.
I've been collaborating with a civil society association on COVID because the Mexican government response to COVID has been one of the worst in the world, and therefore many social civil associations sprung up to simply provide information. This one is directed by a by a medical doctor. It's a woman. It's a fantastic woman. She's a natural born leader, and she vapes. She's a vapor, but and that's how I knew her. But when I joined, she told me, "Look, this is not about vaping. This is COVID. You are welcome to contribute with your professional knowledge, but on COVID." And I did. I gave like 6 talks about respiratory particles and about face masks, etc., etc. They were very much liked. I had to swallow some horrible frogs. Like, for example, one idiotic doctor telling people that they shouldn't vape because they'll get COVID, and showing this stupid article by the University of Stanford.
Mm.
And I could have spoken because I have a published letter to the editor on that paper because the statistics is crap. But I kept my promise, didn't say anything, nothing like that. However, in the Facebook conversations, because after each talk, for example, after I gave what I think was a very good talk about face masks, there was hundreds of people in Facebook asking questions about face masks and so on. And one lady doctor, she mentioned vaping, and rather than start a discussion with her, I just gave her one piece of information. One piece of information. I don't know if I convinced her. And the piece of information, and it's a very powerful piece, is that vaping is supported by the health establishment of the United Kingdom, whose public health system is among the best. This piece of information is very powerful because it has authority. It's the United Kingdom. How could something that is toxic and kills people and addicts children and whatever can be part of the public health policies of a very important country? Just give that information. I just gave her that information. That's all. I don't know to what degree she changed her mind. And so in another occasion, somebody changed her mind and said, well, in that case, then it should be only used by smokers. And for smokers, it's okay, but not for everybody else. So you just providing little drops of information, you start making change. And you provide them without trying to convince people. So if you try to convince people, then you are like the salesman trying to sell you a vacuum cleaner, right?
Yeah, doesn't work.
No.
No, that's true.
Look, there are vacuum cleaners outside. There is something called vacuum cleaner. It exists.
Yeah.
It's outside. That's it.
Yeah.
The person then knows that. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's a beginning because change seldom happens. Some people change drastically in 1 second, but most people change is a gradual problem. It's a gradual process, but you have to start it. And the way
Yeah.
to start change is to provide a drop of information. And in my opinion, the most powerful drop that we can provide is the support by the United Kingdom. I think that's an extremely powerful drop to put to people.
Thank you, Roberto. That's perfect. I agree. Absolutely. Any comments? We good? Fiona?
Kira asked a question. Okay, was there any discussion about getting on TV in a positive way or starting a PR campaign? And I was telling her, if you rewind this while it is still live, you will be able to see what we've discussed. But that's what takes a lot of money, Kira. And that's not something that we have yet. But yes, we have, discussed that lightly, but we know, like, and even the most common consumer knows that anything in a television or in a commercial standpoint is, it would take a great deal of money. So there was some earlier discussion, but if you do rewind this while it's live, you can listen to it again and catch what we've said on it.
Patrick is sitting out there. Should we let him in? What do you think?
Yes.
Jan's like, I'll
let Patrick in.
He's girly enough to join our girl panel.
You want to join the girl panel, Patrick?
I heard girl panel, so I thought I would come in and say hello.
Hey,
so how you doing? No. The PR thing
that is
something,
so creepy.
I know, right? Yeah, I use this one.
The
PR thing is something that we've been talking about here in the States for a very long time. And it costs more money than what we've been able to, milk out of the industry. You're, talking about multi-million dollars to get any sort of mainstream media coverage. We've done everything possible, on social media that is reasonable and would be considered responsible. I've heard about, and I mentioned in the chat room about TikTok. I mean, that works in a lot of places, but here in the States, TikTok is seen as a sort of a kids platform, and they've actually already started tracking vape hashtags on that platform on TikTok, and there's been headlines, already attacking us for even thinking about being on TikTok.
Someone
the Twitter
tell Jordan
thing,
Wheeler that.
Huh?
Yeah,
tell Jordan Wheeler that he loves TikTok.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that's how it's perceived by the general public.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Us
and the
boomers,
other thing,
us boomers,
you're not a boomer. You're a Generation X.
I am Gen X, but everybody calls me boomer. They say, okay, boomer.
Yeah. The thing about the media in the United States, and I ran into this because we were trying to promote it, sCOPe, in the US. And a lot, and I had this discussion with Michelle Minton once too. The media in the United States, because it's such a, anybody can sue anybody, and there's a word for it, and I can't think of it right now, but
litigious.
That's it. Yeah. A lot of them won't publish or engage with people that, it may piss off a certain billionaire because he has a lot of interests in media.
We've actually already conversed with media buyers and got prices to get on all of the major news networks.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yes,
it's a shit ton of money. Pardon my French.
How much was it?
For the I think it was an 8-week campaign. It was somewhere around $10 million US.
Yeah,
10 million for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. In Mexico, we're kind of optimistic, mixed optimistic, because There are two legislators, both of them very well respected, both of them MDs. They are MDs, they are legislators. They belong to the opposition, not to the dominant party. Both of them are launching initiatives to reform the tobacco law that are sort of inspired in the European Union model. That means that they do mention harm reduction, and they want to regulate. Of course, we don't agree with some of the issues, but both legislators, both of them, I've already made personal contact with both of them, and these legislators, they have access to media, and the way we presented themselves is that we are consumers, and we're very glad to share our consumer experience to advise them, and also told them that we have a scientific contribution to make, and that we are connected with an international network of organizations, and we have access to experts. I don't know, like Peter Hajek or David Sween, or
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. And so one of them has been very positive. The other one just say, thank you very much. We'll keep it in mind, and we'll be in contact. But one of them, we already had a Zoom meeting with him, and he openly says, help us. We want your input. And these people will get us media, mainstream
Yeah.
media, because it's not the same. If I want some media cover, they won't listen to me. But if a federal legislator is asking a major mainstream newspaper, that's a different story. So we are hopeful that something might get on, but it will be next year. It's nothing going to happen this year.
Yeah. No. I wanted to address this quote that I put on the bottom of the screen. Speaking to people in the UK who are good on parliamentary matters. Yes, Rich, Dick, you're right. But what we're talking about right now is to get the message outside of the echo chamber. It's not so much talking about the politicians; it's talking to the average junkie public, to get them to be engaged and get them to, understand that what they're doing to us, they could do to them. It could be sugar, it could be alcohol, it could be anything. Okay. But building the community outside of the echo chamber. But I wanted to share that because, yes, you're right. PR companies are expensive and they aren't very effective. And in order to make this issue important to policymakers, yes, we need to humanize it. So, yeah, good point. Patrick, you made that little face like you were going to say something. What?
No, I mean, to us, this means a lot. Because we use it, we love it, it saved our lives, whatever terminology you want to throw at it. But to get somebody off the street that's never smoked, that's never vaped, to spend 5 minutes listening to the elevator pitch about how they need to care about what we do, that's a struggle that we've been fighting here for a decade, is to get normal folks. I mean, we talk about this. In 2016 they did a survey, and 70% of the people responded on the survey that they knew that vaping was safer than smoking. They repeated that survey in 2019 and in 2021, and the results flipped. 70% of the American population believed that vaping was worse than smoking.
Because of the media blitz from the rich people that don't want them doing it.
Bloomberg brainwashing.
So the trouble is that we have to figure out a way on the cheap to get those people that don't care about this because it doesn't affect them to actually care about this, because ultimately it does affect them.
Yes, it does. I mean, we've used here in New Zealand, we've used the, because we've got socialized medicine. Think about all the money that could be saved on, from cardiovascular services and things like that. And some people get it. Other people, they're just like, but then again, it doesn't really wash because the tax take from tobacco is so much higher than the actual cost to the health system.
Yeah.
Right. And we can't use the argument that insurance rates will go down for us, with our commercialized medicine, because they just single out if you're a smoker or if you're a vapor, we're just going to charge you more because
Six
you
hundred
chose
fifty
to do
dollars.
this. Yeah.
$650 more a year if you're a tobacco user or a nicotine user on your
Same here.
employer paid insurance. And the MSA money, you tell people that they use the MSA money, which is tobacco taxes, that people assume there's nothing in the MSA that actually says that money will be used for anything specific. People assume that, but then when you tell them it goes to paying for roads and infrastructure and everything else, they're like, well, then we benefit from that.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah,
hard
no.
to find a good standing argument other than to, instead of specifically speaking on vaping, it is to undo the brainwashing on nicotine itself. And like what was discussed earlier, and with neurodiversity and things like that, getting involved in other groups and expanding our personal network to slowly get them in. I do believe and agree with Roberto. It's going to be an ongoing process, and it's going to take some time, and we can't burn out. We have to keep pushing forward because there is some progress being made.
Yeah. It's a slow. It's H always says, it's not a dash, it's a marathon. And I think going forward, sorry, Patrick. I think going forward, if we're in it together, it makes it a lot easier to carry the load. Patrick?
I was going to say, the freedom argument, what you were talking about, the sugars and threatening other things, that works with a certain demographic. I mean, we've been using the freedom argument for 10 years. But there are a lot of people in this country who are more than willing to allow people to tell them what's best for them.
Yeah. Lazy people, sheeples, I call them. Just totally politically incorrect, but yeah. They let other people think for them. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Gentlemen, would you like to stay for ladies chat, or would you like to just run screaming from the hills because it's too much estrogen for you?
No, I have to prepare my lecture, so
all right.
I say
thank you, Roberto. Muchísimas gracias por todo.
Nada. And what I'm planning to do is taking material from the 3 lectures and gathering them in a 1-hour presentation with but I think I'll do that in Spanish with or maybe in English, I don't know, but I'm planning to do that. But for December, not now. I would like to do that, like a sort of scientific information about vaping, and I'm going to do that. Yeah,
that would be really helpful. Can you do both languages? Is it possible, please?
I think I think it's better to do it in English. I think I'll do it in English with Spanish subtitles.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Roberto.
Before you leave, Roberto, I do want to send you the invitation to come on Son of Liberty Radio. We do our show every Friday night at 9 p.m. Central. Anytime you want. Open invitation. You just tell me when you have a Friday evening available.
Please do. Please.
Next Friday, or Friday is a good day because, it's Friday.
Yay.
So, I'm so tomorrow tomorrow or the day after Thanksgiving? Next Friday.
Yeah, maybe after Thanksgiving. Whenever it suits you. I'm ready anytime.
I do the show every Friday night, and we're here for about 4 hours sometimes. So anytime you want. So if you
gentlemen.
want to do it tomorrow night, you do it tomorrow night. If you're not, we'll figure out a different day. But I just wanted to do that before he left.
That's all good. We've got 15 minutes for us.
Not tomorrow night, but the next occasion. Okay?
Okay.
Right.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to do a quick ladies thing, and then we've got to send Liana to work.
Bye-bye.
Paul.
And I'm off to see my surgeon. All right.
Okay,
good
luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Paul.
We're here. We've got 15 minutes. The boys again. Hey, ladies. Quickly. The article that was in Filter Magazine. I'm going to try to share it and see if I can bring it up. Let's see If I don't screw this up, Chrome tab.
It was a good article.
Yeah, here we go. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah, women's voices among those absent and global tobacco control COP. I have to go into a different window so I can't see you, so I'm just going to scroll. All right.
Okay.
This was written by Helen Redmond. I've had the luxury joy of meeting her. She's lovely. She worked with the homeless people in New York City, drugs harm reduction and tobacco harm reduction. This first sentence, this first paragraph is just amazing. I'll read it because I don't know if anybody can see it from my screen, but global tobacco control is deeply political, divisive, and reflects the prevailing gendered and other social hierarchies that influence policy and research agenda. This critique is not unique to tobacco control. It's seen across global health, which suffers from a lack of women's participation and leadership, and gender-responsive policy programs, research, and resource allocation. Okay? Of the 8 million annual smoking deaths worldwide, 1.5 million of them are women. Now, I will share the link to this in the chat so people can read it, because I really think people should be reading this. Hold on. Has everybody had a chance to read that article?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I must admit I have not read it.
It's okay. Here we go. I'll scroll down a bit. Despite efforts by women's health and gender equality advocates and practitioners globally, the FCTC, which sets the tone and priorities for coordinated global action, is largely gender blind. The preamble of the FCTC communicates, quote unquote, alarm at increases in tobacco use by women and girls, and succinctly acknowledges the need for women's participation in tobacco control, including a reference to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Let's talk about this for a minute. Let's talk about how everything, and I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of rabid feminist. I'm saying this, how do we as women get louder?
Scream.
At least she didn't say boobs.
Hey,
Yeah, last time you
boobs.
said
Hey, Lindsay,
boobs,
it was
so.
all right. I love Lindsay's sense of humor, and believe it or not, humor does keep people involved. It does it causes some good interaction. We got to have a sense of humor, because otherwise things get dry, and like my best friend puts it, I start to fall asleep. But she enjoys you, Nancy. So yes, you need to keep coming on. I'm just letting you know, you have to have these discussions.
I think more collaboration works too. You know, and being focused. I think, like I brought up the last time that we had the women's thing. I think that the PMT sharing group is a bunch of women. Getting behind just something that get all the nonsense out. This is our goal. This is what we're doing, and work on that. So I think that would be one way to get more women involved. Just give them a common goal to work on.
Yeah, I mean, Jan, what's your thought?
Well, I think we've got this weird thing in New Zealand where most of the greatest percentage of people who vape are actually male.
Yeah. Is it the same in the States, guys?
Yeah. And
Predominantly.
Yeah.
Predominantly, yes. And there are a few women specifically that I've helped make the transition, or they're dual using right now. It's been mixed.
Okay, Jan, continue that thought. So we do have women. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, I'm interrupting you again, Jan, is that the women that vape tend not to be the advocates.
Yeah, I think, well, we know that there will be a large proportion of vapers who just want to go to the vape shop. They want to say, I want that Hoosie Watch, and I want that flavoured juice, and like off I go, and I'm not smoking any longer, and go me. And they don't probably even think about what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's something they do. It's like putting on their mascara in the morning. It's not something that they I want to say they take it for granted, but that's probably not the right word. It's not a lifestyle, or it's not a passion for them. It's just something that they do.
Yeah,
and some of the
I
women,
have a sorry. I have a
No, go
friend
ahead.
who vapes, and she didn't even want to learn any terminology. She didn't
Yeah.
want to know that something was called a coil or a clearomizer or anything. It was kind of like, okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
Right.
part of it, I think, is that the women, we've got, and I'm not saying the men don't, so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't sound like like I said, a rabid feminist. But I think we have so many other things on our plate that this is one of those things that you're either really passionate about and you'll do something, or you're just too overwhelmed. But it's a shame because I think the way women, and Lindsay, you and I have had this discussion, I think the way women deliver a message is different than the way a man delivers a message. And I think that that's an untapped resource for getting the messages across. I'm going to let Lindsay answer this because she has to go to work. I mean, Liana answer this because I know she has to go to work. Liana?
That's true. If you're going to humanize something and put real, true emotion and passion behind something, sometimes it is easier for a woman to do that. Typically, I mean, look at Amanda Wheeler and the speeches that she delivers. I mean,
Yeah.
if it did not bring you to tears, I mean, seriously, like it
Yeah.
gets to you, and it's very effective. And like when I read this article, I had mixed feelings as well. One thing I'm not a raging feminist either, but if it's something that is productive in some way, if we can use it in some way to reach more people, then great. But it did make me feel a little bit awkward. But then again, she was right. She was absolutely right. And most of the female vapors that I know are generally passive. They are occupied with life and their children and their jobs and their families. It took everything I had just to ask my best friend, will you please go to your emails, which she ignores. I just forwarded you the email. Will you join PASA and please fill out this survey? And she did. And then I met another young man who was all for it, but he doesn't have, he chose to boycott himself for a year off Facebook. But I was able to get him to follow Son of Liberty Radio and the Wednesday night show that Paul is a part of on YouTube because he's an avid YouTuber. Everybody has their own thing, and
Mm-hmm.
like it, I just had a lot of mixed feelings. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys about how I felt,
It does.
but it's
Yeah,
hard
no,
for
it
me to
does.
put into words.
No, it does. Linz?
What's the original question? I mean, how I like. I mean, how. I will say,
How?
the one
Go
thing I
ahead.
will say in this space though that I've seen with the women, there's really not a lot of cattiness. There's no mean girls, Regina George, D-bag chick in here. I think that, we all tend to pick each other up, rather than we share what each other's doing. We don't sit there and, I mean, actually, yeah, I'm nothing really bad to say about any of the women in this industry. It's all the
Mm-hmm.
dudes that I got opinions about. But I think that that's a really good camaraderie that you really don't see a lot in female relationships in a lot of different fields. I think most of us are coming into this, at least that are advocates, that we believe in the power of, tobacco harm reduction, and we want to help that with other people, that we don't really care about the infighting and stuff like that.
The ego
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, for sure. I mean, going forward, do you think we need to do more? The question is, do you think we need to do more to engage more women in advocacy?
Yes. When I was at Safada, actually, I was trying to do like a Women of Vape Wednesday, on social media, just kind of highlighting all the famous and infamous, maybe not so famous women out there, just kind of giving them a shout out. I think doing more themed days to kind of give some insight into all the stuff that women are doing across the world, I think will help drive us more together and put us more together. And maybe we can beat vaping and tell the dudes that we did something that they didn't do. We changed public opinion.
Jan?
Yeah, I think we could actually encourage more women. Although we kind of like Nancy and I sit here in New Zealand, and Nancy founded Evca, and so Evca's like female driven, isn't it?
It
Really,
is. Yeah, it
so
is.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is.
Um,
But I think there's a perspective there. There's two things. There's a perspective there that we don't hear from, because the boys, pretty much for the most part, are the ones that everybody hears about. Okay, that's number one. And when you've got the boys, you've got the guys that they kind of juggle this whole cloud bro versus advocacy thing, and that works for them. And the women that I've seen, that we've had a few in New Zealand, and we've had a few in Australia as well, that they they're involved, but they're not involved to the level that like Jan and I are involved, and it's almost like it's too much for them. So we got to kind of figure out how we make this easy to get these people involved and to represent, because we do have a different way of communicating with people, and we do, I think, have it a lot easier without the ego, like Lindsay said, to engage and communicate with people. So that's one of those things I'd like to see us all work on in the new year, if we're all keen for it. What do you think?
Sounds
Yeah?
good to me.
Yeah. But we have to take into consideration Liana's principles of making it relatable outside of our bubble. So those are your tasks, Liana. Figure out how we're going to make this relatable outside of our bubble.
Okay, boss.
Well, it's
Sounds good.
women. I was reading and I never thought about it. Harm reduction. Sunscreen is a harm reduction thing.
Yeah.
I
Constantly telling people to put it on, right? Put your
Yeah.
sunscreen on. Slip, slap, slap. Yeah.
1936 is when it came out, actually, working on a harm reduction project. So I think that's one of the ways to kind of, especially with women, to getting them involved is some of the, seatbelts, helmets, you take care of your kid. Now, this is the, concept of harm reduction for smokers.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? And here in New Zealand, Jam will remember, the lady that pushed for the mandatory bicycle helmets here in New Zealand was a lady whose son, I think he died, didn't he? He got really badly damaged, and that's why we have the helmet law. Jan?
Yeah, I kind of do vaguely remember that, but weirdly, I think it's only New Zealand, Australia, and the UAE have the bicycle helmet law.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I think her son, I think he was on State Highway 2 or something. The New Zealand helmet law came into effect from the 1st of January 94. It applies to bicycle riders of all ages, but not to riders of other types, like unicycles, tricycles, and quadricycles don't need it, which is crazy because a unicycle, you fucking need it. Yeah, so since 1994, and I remember it was something about a lady whose son got like hit by a car or something, and she fought the government to get it. Here we go. Rebecca Oten, the helmet lady, started a campaign advocating for compulsory helmets. Her son Aaron had been permanently brain damaged in 1986 while riding his 10-speed bicycle to school in Palmerston North. A car driver hit him, flinging him over the handlebars and headfirst to the ground, where his head struck a concrete gutter. After 8 months in a coma, he woke paralyzed and unable to speak. All right. According to Oten, a doctor at the time told her that Aaron almost certainly would not have suffered brain damage had he been wearing a bicycle helmet. So in the late 80s and early 90s, she traveled around the country, and she got the law put into place in 1994.
God,
So
Dave should hire her here in the States.
Took her 8 years to get the law. Yeah, about 8 years to get the law put in. By the way, he did finally pass away in 2010 at age 37 because he was just so wanted. May he rest in peace. But there's a good example of a woman enacting harm reduction.
Yes, I don't really kind of agree with it. I mean, it's kind of like the opposite. It's literally what the pave moms are doing here. My kid is vaping, so nobody else can vape now.
Yes,
like
but
my kid didn't wear a helmet, so now everybody else has to wear a helmet. I mean, but it is honestly. I mean, here in the States, I know like motorcycles. The states have their different laws on it. I mean, I always thought it was freaking weird that you've states out there that you have to wear a seatbelt in the car, but you don't have to wear a helmet on a motorcycle. looking at
Yeah.
you, Wisconsin. But so that's just kind of interesting. But yeah, you are kind of seeing, like I said, you're seeing the opposite happening here and worldwide. My kid is doing this, and they're not supposed to be doing this. So now none of y'all can do this, and we're just gonna ban
But
it.
the difference there, I think the difference there, and this is a real big bone of contention for me, and Jan knows this because the lady who was looking under the toilet cubicles was in Green Bay High School, local to me. Where the hell are the parents?
Exactly.
See, and that's something that I see, and this is why I kind of think the whole mother in me is kind of kicking in on this as well, is if you're a parent, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but if you're a parent, how can you not know your kid's spending $200 a week on vape stuff? Liana, do you need to go?
I do. I have that look like I got to
Yeah.
use the bathroom or something.
All right, you can go, my love. Thank you for
I
joining
do
us.
want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of something that is relatively new to me, and engaging me, educating me, and giving me some more fuel and facts and love and support when I really needed it. And I look forward to, whatever we can come up with in the future. And I'm more than willing to do my part as time permits. And I love you all. And Nancy, you're incredible. All the women, Jan, you're incredible. Lindsay, I'm just letting you know, yes, this has been a mind-blowing experience. And
Well,
thank you for
2022 is going to
my
be fun.
humble award. That was awesome.
You're very welcome.
I'm
And
very
2022,
grateful.
prepare for it because it's going to be a wild ride.
Well, 2023, let's all go to Panama.
No, I like wild rides. I do have a
Panama!
Harley. I'm thinking about riding it today, but I'm debating on whether or not I want to scuff a really good pair of new boots because they're just cool, riding to work. But I'm seriously contemplating it right now.
I would do it because they're going to get scuffed eventually anyway.
Right, but it's different when you've got like the clutch lever right there and you really
I know,
scuff
but,
them. They're brand new. It's like having a meltdown.
Use
over
the
it.
good china. Go for it.
I love you.
Okay,
You're
talk to
awesome.
you later.
All right, ladies. Have a wonderful day. I am out.
You too. See ya.
Thank you.
Peace.
Ciao, baby. Getting back to the PAVE moms. I see it here, and Jan sees it here, and we see it. I mean, it's everywhere, pretty much, in the first world or second world countries. Is where are the parents?
That's the
That's
right
my
question. I mean, my parents, I started smoking in high school. My parents were smokers. They would go,
Yeah.
and when they found out that I was smoking, they would go through my bag, like coming and going to school. They'd search it, and if they'd find cigarettes, they'd take them. And I actually went to menthol cigarettes for a little bit there because they would smoke them. And so, unless I brought menthol cigarettes, so then I'd just steal them back because they wouldn't smoke those. But my parents did have, like some idea, and even I refuse to believe this whole like I don't know what it is. It looks like a USB thing, I mean, they're just delirious. But I think that you have that problem with parents on everything right now. I mean, look at how social media is getting attacked. Once again, where are your parents at? Your parents are paying for that cell phone that you're using to get onto social media. At this point, is it Facebook's fault or the parents should be on trial at that point? They're the ones who facilitated it. You gave them the money and they went and did this. It's no different
Jan?
for a hitman for hire.
Jan?
Yeah, what gets me is what has been happening here is you get the school principals and, they've confiscated this array of stuff and, it's such a problem and blah, blah, blah. And somehow that's evidence, but we're anecdotes.
Yeah. I've seen that here in the States when the PAVE mom comes in. I know, like, you'll have a person, an adult, testifying on how they quit smoking, and then you'll have CTFK come in and sit there and say, well, they're just an anecdote. And then they have a PAVE person who literally is just telling a story about their kid or a story that they heard. And it's like, whoa. This guy who actually is giving you evidence on how he quit smoking is an anecdote, but this lady who's like talking about her kid is okay. I mean, and if it's that bad, where's your kid at? I mean, like, seriously, punish them, put them in front of lawmakers.
Well, here's the thing that pisses me off, for whatever it's worth, is when they bring all these kids in to make testimonies, like that WHO bullshit thing that was like, they're talking about exploiting children. Who's exploiting the children?
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
And they all read
Huh?
the same thing too. I mean, it's not like they don't even write their own papers. They don't even write their own testimony. It's literally they took it from a CTFK website. This is what I should say to my lawmakers.
So the question then comes, and this may get me in trouble, but whatever. The question then comes is, I've said this a couple times. Jan's heard me say this. Is it that these CTFK and the PAVE moms and all that, it's not that they so much give a crap about the kids. It's that it's a money train. It's their 15 minutes of fame, and they'll do and promote whatever they've got to do to maintain that whole charade. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes.
How do we stop it?
By getting parents to speak out against it. I mean,
How do you
I
propose
would
we
hope
do
that there would be some parent in this high school that's what I just don't get is that some of these parents are not seeing that. Yeah, I mean, even if it's their kid that's vaping, and you don't see enough of these parents being like, "Yeah, my kid vaped. Okay, that's my fault that they're vaping." I'd like to see that. I don't know what's wrong in America, especially in the American. Like, if you want the government to raise your kids, and fine, give them to the government. Seriously, let's just make a little penal colony for all these kids that, the parents can't parent, so they need government coming in here to parent their kids. I mean, that's really it's what it's coming down to right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Curtis just made a comment, and this is good too. Hold on, I'm going to show it. Once the FDA taxes everything and people will buy from the black market and they're just like buying illegal drugs off the street, what do we do about that? That is the argument that Jan and I used with the Ministry of Health here in New Zealand. And they were going risk proportionate, okay? And then now all of a sudden we've got this new thing, which everybody's like, oh, New Zealand, they've legalized. Well, yeah, okay. But something happened in the translation where now we've set this up that we've actually set up for a black market. And that's what all of this is going to do. It's all going to set up a black market. So it's going to conceivably reverse the whole intent and purpose of having a regulated market.
Yep.
Okay. So Patrick wrote this. Hold on. Yeah, they shot themselves in the foot bringing the kids in on the WHO thing. That kid admitted to vaping, that he vaped even though he was told not to. Here's the thing.
Yeah, and he even
Sorry,
said
Mom.
if you tell people not to do something, they will just do it.
I mean, wasn't there that whole paper?
The irony.
Lindsay Bell wrote the paper. The kids are going to do what kids are going to do.
Yep.
I mean, and Jan and I had a discussion. Was that guy from the American Cancer Society, the American Lungs? Remember that time in Wellington we met with that guy about kids vaping?
Talking about like the 2016 article.
I don't know. It was something. And
2017, yeah.
Jan and I met him, and we asked him. Jan specifically asked him. She's like, "So, are we talking tried or ever use or daily use?" And the guy was from America, and he actually admitted to us that they didn't differentiate between the two.
Oh, Jesus.
Now you remember. Okay. So, it's interesting how people are manipulating it. I mean, and part of me wants to manipulate back, but I don't, two wrongs don't make a right, So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I think that like I said, I think if we get enough people engaged and we do, the female voice on this as an advocate, not activists per se, but as advocates, and educate other people, moms and stuff, or people that we know through our other networks. I mean, I think that's probably going to be the only way we're going to, one of the many, like I said, to keep web that comes in, the many ways of getting it out there, because, we don't have the money these people have to the amount of bullshit that they put out there.
So maybe we should make a fake organization and see if we can apply for one of Bloomberg's grants. Sorry. I mean, he wants to be sneaky. I'll be sneaky and scrupulous and, go and take his money.
You'd have to do it, though, because you're in the States. He wouldn't probably do it for us.
No, he's got the whole region. I mean, gosh, he's given so much money to that Health Justice Philippines. When I was
but those were grants. Those are grants that they applied for, and that's
I should
one
make
thing.
A fake organization. We're gonna eradicate smoking, and actually, just keep it like that. In the mission statement, we were out to eliminate combustible cigarettes. We're not technically lying. We're just leaving out. We're doing that by promoting alternatives.
You're evil.
Hey.
You never think about that. I know what she's going to do. She's going to go see her dad at Christmas, and she's going to have a couple of drinks, and she's going to be sitting there going,
Yeah, I'm making THR. I'm gonna turn THR 101 into a nonprofit in all the countries. I will get a grant one of these ways.
Well, yeah, you probably could. The sad reality is that you probably could.
Oh, I imagine. Oh gosh. So now, I mean, if I took Bloomberg money, I'd just go give it to a different organization. I'd be like, but
To an opposite organization. I know, but it's another thing that concerns me. I know we've kind of strayed from women, but that's okay. Another thing that concerns me is that how they've gone from combustible tobacco to nicotine. I think that they're aiming for medicalization, global medicalization,
yeah.
and we've got to fight that too.
Yeah, that I was talking about that this morning because you keep just this demonization of nicotine, and it's so funny. I was reading something and it was really just alarmism, and they're talking about like the developing brain. Now, this is what I don't get. Back in the 90s, a lot more kids were smoking than are even vaping. When you start breaking down some of these numbers on use, I mean, back in like 1995, over 70% of kids had used a cigarette in the past 30 days, or as they define current e-cigarette use the same way. And over 30% of them were daily smokers. What happened to the nicotine in their brains? Like, I mean, well, they all had kids that they can't parent now, and they need the government coming in. But besides that,
but here's the thing, Jan, how old were you when you started smoking?
11.
Yeah, me about the same. Okay, my parents smoked. I smoked. Okay. If I'm brain damaged, I mean, there are some that would say, yes, indeed, you are brain damaged. But I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I remember a lot of things from school. I'm one of those weird people that actually have a pretty good memory of school. I do not remember one person saying to us or having a class saying that we shouldn't vape. This was in the 70s and the 80s. Jan, do you remember anything like that?
Sorry, that we shouldn't what?
We shouldn't smoke. Sorry.
Smoke. Oh yeah, we had lots of it, diseased lungs, and women with no care after chemo, and played all kinds of footage like that.
We didn't have any of that in the States in the 70s or the 80s. I think it was probably after I graduated high school that they really started pushing it. We had DARE, but DARE was only just starting, and that's drugs, right, Linz?
Yeah. Well, yeah. DARE's all of it. They included smoking in there, but
I don't remember any of that at all. So yeah, we're all brain damaged, and that's just the nature of the beast. Hi, Jeff. My school had a smoking area for us. Yeah, Patrick, we did too. Our high school, we had a smoking area. It was called the Cage, and that's where we could go to smoke.
That's called my car. I was in high school in the 2000s, guys. Okay,
I know. No, in the 80s we had smoking areas. It was in the 70s. It was in the school. There was a smoking lounge, and then by the time I got to high school in 82 or so, they'd moved it outside, and it was the Cage.
God, the good old days.
And then they got rid of the Cage, and then everybody just went up to the handball courts because they weren't going to stop smoking. Dare to keep kids off drugs. Yeah, that's what the drug users at school always said. Yeah, so I think we've pretty much covered it. So what we're going to do is, going into the new year, we'll do a ladies thing. We'll try to organize something, but we got to try to bring more ladies in from other areas as well.
Maybe get some nominations for women. People who are watching, if they send you an email about like women who should be involved.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not a separate thing. We're not trying to be, separatists or anything like that, or any kind of, rabid feminists. It's just, we've got to put all our thinking caps on, and we've got to take advantage of all our skill sets and all of our abilities, because this is going to, what we've been doing, it has worked to a certain extent, but we got to work smarter and not harder, because we've got to do something, because we're up against it. We are so up against it right now.
Yeah.
You concur? Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of Liberty. Patrick, how many will be willing to travel to Panama? I am so there.
I'm totally Panama.
I am so totally there. I haven't been to Latin America in over 20 years. I so miss South America and Central America. I'm there. As long as they let us out.
Never been to South America.
Oh, Jan,
I've never been either. Yeah.
You guys are going to love it. I love it. The food is amazing. The men are really good to look at. Yes, that was a sexist comment.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the whole vibe, just the vibe is good. So
It's funny
yeah,
though
hopefully,
that they're doing it in Panama. I saw that Panama's
of-
cigarette market, apparently 80% of it's illegal cigarettes, is black market cigarettes. What an awesome place to go put it in there.
but
Put it
the other thing somebody brought up, the other thing is, it's pretty amazing they're going to do it in Panama when they can have all the American advocates come down pretty quickly because it's
Yeah.
not that far.
No, it's not. I mean, and it's, at least for me, it's just straight down too. So there's not any crazy time, differentials or anything like that. Yeah.
Hopefully the world opens up, Jen and I can go from Auckland to Santiago to Panama.
Oh God,
Yay.
yeah, that'd be a long flight.
We totally want to go, Jeff. So yeah, you'll probably be stuck with us come 2023 if the world comes right. And there we go. So ladies, we've done 2 hours total. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you everybody watching us. And we will give you some more information, and I will try to get the index and the library of the videos done before I take off in December, and then we'll start up with all our advocacy stuff in January. So if I don't talk to you guys, Jen, I will talk to you. Lindsay, I will talk to you. But I'm talking to those guys. Have a great holiday, whatever you celebrate. Be smart. Don't drive drunk. And go well. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.